Welcome again to the Lawnpro tutorial. Today we're going to cover time tracking using the permanent account that allows you to see a lot more features, and so we can really get into it with more detail. So let's begin. So in this module, it is basically used to handle payroll functions as well as billing for customer invoices. When we come to the page, it is very straightforward. Here is the time tracking module, and then the submodules are within it. The submodules are labeled track time, active time clocks, categories, hourly rates, approved track time, payments, and settings. I'll briefly go through the track time section. The track time section is just a large catalog of all the different times that have been logged in for all the employees on all the jobs. In order for this to make any sense, you have to immediately go to a filter. Normally, you'll filter for one specific day. Let's take a look at what the crew is doing today. As a shortcut, I will press here, as is the today shortcut. Next, I will probably be wanting to look at a particular employee. Let's assume that I'm not 100% sure who is working today. I'm going to go and hit the apply button so that I can see the results of the table filtered for just today. I hit the apply button, and then I can see that currently, this late at night, I'm the only person logged in. So what I really need to look at is what happened yesterday. Let's take the yesterday shortcut and then hit apply. Here we can see that these were the few jobs that were performed yesterday. Yesterday was a rain out. We had an office person working in the office, and then we had a crew member that just began the day and attempted to start during the rainy day, but it didn't last very long. Under normal circumstances, this list is a bit more populated. Let's take a look at what that might look like by choosing a specific day. We'll use custom range. The calendar will show up. We'll then be able to press the first date in the range we want to see, and we want to say, let's take a look at Monday. We're going to click the 17th for the first one. It'll highlight blue, and then I need to click the 18th or the 17th again in order to highlight the second time. I want to see just the 17th. I don't want to include the 18th, so I'll press 17 again. When I do, this button will glow green, and you'll know that it's ready. You'll hit apply, and then you'll need to hit apply again. The first apply loads the dates into the calendar. The second apply refreshes the screen and allows you to see the results. Seeing the results, I now have a much fuller day's worth of events. If I look, I'll see that at the very bottom of the page is the earliest times in the morning, and as the screen continues, they get later in the day. During the day, we had many employees working, and you can see the list of employees here in this column where it says employee. And then we can also see the customers that were visited by looking here in this column. We can also see the property and addresses that were used. And then we can also see a listing for a little bit of a description about the job. These are the subject lines for each one of the events. If I wanted to edit individually, I could edit here. I could also delete one or take a closer look where there are some more details. For now, I'm happy that I have a list. I really need to more deeply filter this list. So we're going to pick a particular employee. Let's say, for example, we want to know what Mr. Selvin was doing today. Perhaps we want to find out, his payroll, figure out what that is. So we're going to look at Mr. Selvin. So Mr. Selvin now has all of his times here in this column. That's how you know it is his. And this is a raw data format. At some point, one of the office staff will go through here and edit these times as necessary. And during that editing process, they will sometimes get rid of erroneous times or times that just aren't necessary. A lot of times at the end of the day, crew members don't clock out of their clock, and so we have to go back and fix that. We can see that sometimes some of these clocks will run all the way, say, to midnight. When that occurs, it's very helpful to come back in and clean up that clock. The person who handles payroll goes through and does exactly just that. And also, any staff members that are doing billing will also come in here and adjust those times in order to make sure that the billing is accurate. We will go into further detail about exactly how to do that at another time. Other than that, there is a possibility that you may also want to filter the data not just for a particular employee for a particular day, but you also may want to do, say, for example, updating of billing. In that case, you might be less focused on a particular employee and you might be more focused on a customer, or perhaps the both of them. So for just a moment, let's go ahead and return this filter back to any. You will type any and it will return you back to any employee. And now we're going to pick a specific customer. So let's think of a customer that we were at. We're going to also increase the range. If I were to just choose, say, for example, Mrs. Ball, if we happen to have been there on Monday, which we were, then we're going to see data when I hit apply. Now, that was somewhat coincidental that I chose Mrs. Ball and we happened to be there on this specific day. Under normal circumstances, say I wanted to see more of Mrs. Ball's data, I would need to open up that timeline. Perhaps I might say, hey, let's take a look at Mrs. Ball for the last 30 days. I would change that to 30 days, and of course, then increase the chances that I would get more data points for Mrs. Ball. Here are all the times that we've been to Mrs. Ball. You can see the date here, as well as the time for a period of the last 30 days, because that's what I chose. Here I see that I have different employees here, but all of them are for Miss Ball. I can see a little bit of the notes about the project that was happening at that time, and then I can see the times here on the right. Let's say, for example, I wanted to figure out an exact bill for an exact customer. And in order to do that, I often have to just filter for Mrs. Ball on a particular day. The employees, there may be more than one there, and so I'll leave that filter open. So I'm going to grab Mrs. Ball, and we're going to pick a day where we were there. We'll say, hey, look, the 17th, we were there. And I can see from this list that 2 of our employees were there. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the 17th. I'm going to choose a custom range, and I'm going to choose, it's actually July 17th. Click on it 2 times. That'll go green, and I'll hit apply, and then I'll hit apply here. Here I should get a list of all of the employees who were at Mrs. Ball's property on the 17th. In order to figure out what Miss Ball's bill would be on the 17th, I would need to see everyone that was there. Miss Ball is not overly concerned with the separation of our 2 employees, so we would need to make sure that all employees who were there on this particular day were being billed. If we had, for example, only chosen, say, Mr. Coakley, and choose Trent Coakley, and we were to filter that, and we were to not check to make sure that there perhaps were other employees there, we would obviously only be billing for half of the time because the other employee wasn't there. All the employees are tracked independently, and in order to produce a bill for a customer for a particular day, make sure that you have this set to any so that you'll be able to include anyone and everyone who was there for that day. Well, that concludes all of the basic filtration. There are other ways that you can filter which are more obvious, but if I wanted to also choose exactly what property a customer had, some people have multiple properties, and so that might be helpful. And then there are categories as well. However, both of these are used much, much less often. Most of the time you'll be using the customer, the employee, and the date range. Once you're here, you're able to edit it if there are errors, and we will go into that at another time. You can also delete completely erroneous time logs that don't need to be there. And if you need to create one from scratch because an employee forgot to add one in there, you can click Add Time. We will cover how to edit all of those functions in another module. Thank you very much, and that concludes the Lawnpro tutorial for the first part of the time tracking called the tracked time.